I listen to a podcast where two authors, Brandon Sanderson and Dan Wells, talk about fandom, pop culture, and the creative process. Lately, AI and machine learning have been mentioned with increasing frequency, culminating in them using the predictive text feature on their phones to have a conversation. It went like this.
Welcome to the meeting with your mom.
Well, I have Google open and just using search results.
Oh, very nice.
So, how old is Britney Spears?
Today at church, church emoji. And we will have a link for you next.
Do you have a cough with strep throat? This is getting old real fast.
This is getting old real fast. Maybe in the sense that machine learning techniques are advancing faster than anyone would have predicted. Here's what I'm going to do. Let's leave predicted text behind and use state-of-the-art machine learning to generate a new podcast from scratch. That means that I'll need to simulate not only their writing and speaking style, but also their physical voices. Let's start with their speaking style. The first step was to build a corpus of all the language that had been used in the podcast so far. To prevent any legal gray areas, I transcribed every word that has been said in the podcast up until now by hand. After concatenating all the transcripts together so that we would have two speaker agents, I tried to build a recurrent neural network on character-based data to simulate their conversations. Basically, this creates a model that tries to relearn the English language from scratch by building a probability model about the next input given the previous input. If it sounds complicated, don't worry. Apparently, I don't get it either. So, after a lot of failures, I simply stole weights from a huge open source language model and fine-tuned it on the podcast corpus. And finally, I got some sensible results. It gets kind of weird, and it has a short memory, and it repeats itself a lot, but everyone else is handpicking which outputs they show to the public, so I shall too. After providing a couple of prompts, I have a podcast script. But who is going to read it? Now I have to deepfake their voices. Luckily, Tortoise exists. It's a really good model for voice generation that uses both diffusion decoder and an autoregressive decoder. Plus, it's open source. Thanks, NeonBJB. Sometimes it produces kind of cursed imitations.
Hi again. Is there popcorn in the can?
But once again, I can handpick the outputs. After generating a couple of takes for each line in the podcast and slapping them together, here is my final result. A completely AI-generated episode of Intentionally Blank.
Hello, Brandon. Welcome to the podcast. Would you like to hear about a movie heist?
Is it the heist where the guy had to shoot the other guy in the leg to get the money?
My favorite part about that heist is that it's not only a good heist, but it's a good story. It's not just about the money, it's about the characters. And that's what makes this movie so fun. It's also a great movie to watch.
That is a movie I'm glad I've seen. It's not the best movie ever made, but it's a good movie. It's a movie about a guy who gets out of jail and goes to work for the mob. He ends up getting caught by the feds, and he's going to go to jail.
It had interesting character development for the main character, and the plot was pretty good. But the ending was just too silly for me to enjoy.
Here is my bad story idea. The idea is that someone is trying to destroy the world. This person is a powerful sorcerer and has used his powers to create a series of portals that he can use to bring in minions and do his bidding.
I would add a character who can be very persuasive and, with a bit of luck, can convince the others to join him. I would also like to see the character have a bit of a power about him so that he can give the others a bit of a fright.
That's a good idea, but it might be a little too much for some of the kids. We have a couple of kids that are in the same situation.
I think that this has been a fun, simulated conversation. You should hire the guy who made it. I think you could benefit from a data scientist in your team.
I don't know. I heard data scientists could be expensive.
The guy who wrote this is a PhD student. Pretty sure that you can pay them in gratitude.
I'll have someone look into it. How's that, Ben?
This took a really long time. I could talk about it a lot more. Let me know in the comments if you want a more detailed explanation.